history. Alright, so this is the history of Austria, I guess. Lecture, August 6, 2024. Rudolf I, elected German king, but never got around to having the imperator model approved by the Pope, I think. There's a two-stage process for emperor. 1, election by the princes that are major. 2, crowning by the Pope. Continued to be a thing until Charles V. He was the last one because of his brother Ferdinand and a bunch of other stuff. Otakar is salty about Rudolf being elected, so he fights it. Elected German king in 1273. Never became the HRE emperor, but technically killed Otakar in 1278. Frederick III, father of Maximilian, who did that fabulous marriage dynastic strategy of having Maximilian I marry Mary of Burgundy. Maximilian I did the marriage strategy where he had Philip the Fair Marijuana, Castile, daughter of Fernandez Villa. Charles V, 1500 to 1558, 19-year-old, already king of Spain before 1516, which includes the New World. Also ruled over parts of Italy. The book, The Prince by Machiavelli, was about the Italian War thing. The balance of power issue that was relevant to the time of Machiavelli is that the Italian War. Italy has in common in Germany in that it did not unify as a nation state until 1871. Until then, Italy is fragmented, and in the Middle Ages, it is super too fucking fragmented. Ultimately, Florence gobbles up a lot of smaller Italian states. This includes Rome, so papal states was a thing. All this war in Italy was a thing until 1453, as long as the one was not too big for the British. 1494, King of Naples dead. The French were invited to take the kingship of Naples, and the French was like, "Fuck yeah, boy," and accepted the invitation. But the other European powers were like, "Fuck no," including the Habsburgs. The Valois Wars. The Valois were the ruling dynasty of France at the time, and the Habsburgs hated the Valois. So when France got into Italy, the Habsburg was like, "Fuck no," and so they got into. Why did Charles V get control of parts of Italy? Because he fucking yanked it away from the French, boy. Yeah. Geography of the Habsburg Empire during the reign of Charles. In their name, Italy, part Spain, Austria, hereditary lands, Hungary, Burgundy. Not in their name, but technically rulers. HRE, aka Germany, Saxony, touchy electorate that has its own ruler, namely the elector. Government, essentially an almost autonomous territorial state of the HRE. Above the elector, Saxony is the HRE emperor, but the elector chooses who the next emperor is. The HRE is technically not like a nation state, sort of. Kind of like the EU, but not. Basically, Confederation, Bohemia, electoral monarchy. The estates are the big noble families, blah, 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 blah. Error 404, Windows now Pixie stopped working. Foreign parts of the Habsburg territory, Hungarian territory, developed by the founders of the HRE. Reformation! Martin Luther, Charles V, worst fucking nightmare! Oh, Scheiße! German, becomes a professor at the shining new university that the Elector of Saxony just founded. 1517, 95 thesis, biggest fucking best day! Grotesque, the Kunshistorisches Museum, pay attention to the art that expresses Catholic sensibility versus Protestant sensibility. Cultural crisis during this time, a large part of Europe died in the plague. They got the Thanos treatment. Caused doubt and stuffing Christ. Martin Luther was part of the sowing doubt. He had incredible anxiety and questioning God's benevolence. Lived in an outhouse with decomposing shit because he was harassed or something and felt like he was being harassed by the devil because the devil smells like shit. Tried to follow all the rigid rules of the church and hated this. Hated the practice of the mortification of the flesh. Wanted to keep saying that mine was to mortify flesh. But this didn't work for him, so he had a crisis and read the Bible. Wait a fucking minute. God is love, but he can't expect us to do all this stuff. So then he reformed the entire way in which salvation happens. You don't follow every 10 commandment. You just give up and pray to God that he will help you. So the first step in the process is to realize how stupid and worthless you are, that you deserve to go to hell, but then ask for God for forgiveness, and then he gives you forgiveness, and thus the Protestant Reformation was born. To put this into terms of the time, Martin Luther argues for salvation by grace alone. Meanwhile, Catholics believe in salvation by doing the works and baby steps, types of works, good stuff, indulgence. Martin Luther was mostly beefing over this shit. You can't just buy your way to heaven, God damn it. Indulgences goes way back to the scholastic theology of the Catholic Church. St. Peter's the first pope. This symbol's the key, which is the keys of heavens. This is also the code of the arms of the Vatican. All the saints face this theology of work, where you have to earn salvation. When you do super good shit, you become saints. That shit is extra credit, which means you can hand over your extra salvation credit to those who are hopeless. Thus you have what is called the salvation bank. The Pope owns the key of St. Peter. Can open the salvation bank and give stuff to the people. Thus you can now buy an indulgence from the Pope. Hey, you can buy your way into heaven now. Buy one, get one free guarantee. Charitable donations to the church are needed to ensure that you can be saved. Even if you are still tainted by original sin, you can still possibly be a little less gross through incremental transformation by giving to the church. Indulgences have existed since the Council of Trent. Now they don't exist in the Catholic Church, but you can still donate it to it. Lol. Why Martin Luther was a problem? The sale of indulgences is a major engine for the capital generation of the Catholic Church. Look, there's a family that's important in terms of wealth. The frugal of the family of Habsburg. They collect the money that goes to the ups and then goes to funding like St. Stephen's. However, they also use that money to build mansions. You know, rich people shit. The Catholic Church was extremely corrupt. Many people felt alienated by the church. Changed the way you did elected HRE emperor. Max I died in 1519. The electors cannot afford to alienate Saxony because the ruler of Saxony is one of the 7 electors. And guess who was one of the ruler of Saxony's favorite professors? Martin Luther. He's a star here. Now people know about Saxony and the rules of the university. So Martin Luther was giving him all sorts of new clout. He was going to lose that. Died of works 1519. Charles V elected as Holy Roman Emperor. Worms, the city. Martin Luther debated with representatives of the Catholic Church, and Charles V was pissed, and so each wanted Martin Luther to shut the fuck up. The Holy Roman Emperor orders Martin Luther to recant. He's all about freedom of religion for him. He articulates the idea that he must follow his own consciousness. Could Martin Luther be executed for pissing the emperor? No, he's a big cultural hero, and also the whole thing is Saxon. Martin Luther, spirited away by the ruler of Saxony, kept hidden from his pursuers. He changed his name to go into incognito. He even changes his name to George or something like that. The Humanite. It was during this time that he translated the Bible from Latin to other languages. So why are you able to read the Bible? Thank Martin Luther for that. Martin Luther's translation of the Bible into German was so important that it shaped the formation of literature and language. I like Shakespeare. Europe fell into different religious camps. Catholics thought of itself as universal Christendom, but now the idea is you get out the window. Protestants and umbrella temporary denomination of Protestant, which includes Calvinists, etc. After the time being, Protestants will be used to refer to Lutherans. After 1550, the Catholic Calvinists emerged. Kunshistorisches Museum, Rubens versus Rembrandt, compared to both of the museums. Also Rubens really, his art really expresses the spirituality of the Catholic Counter-Reformation, assumption of the Virgin Mary, important holiday that we will observe. Look at this fucking man, holy dog shit. Lutheranism is taking over the HRE and stuff. Calvinism is taking hold of France, sort of Scotland and Hungary. And Hungary is still part of the Habsburg territory. So will the Habsburg repress it? No, because it's risky. Anglicanism taking hold in England. Catholicism joining Spain, Portugal, Papal States, partly due to the Inquisition. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Calvinism, the difference from Lutheranism, predestination. God has already decided whether or not you'll go to heaven. God can do whatever he wants. Luther doesn't believe in this. Luther's sake is God can do whatever he wants, but if he gives you grace, you'll be all good. Don't worry about that predestination shit. Just have faith. So what happened to Vienna during this time? Vienna was also a team of leftism, but it's good shit out of the Habsburg. Religious map of Europe today fixed by 50-50. Habsburg response to the Reformation wanted everyone back to German Catholicism, led to civil war in Germany, landed in stalemate 50-55 peace of Habsburg. The electors of the Italy can decide what religion their territory is, not the people but the rich guys. As a result, there's some religious diversity within each territory. Who is religio? Is religion, ruler of the place decides religion, who explains the Enlightenment, which happened in the late 18th century. 18th century, Kunsthistorisches Museum, Leonardo Da Vinci, Rubens, Rembrandt, who is ironically younger, I think. Four daughters of Martin Luther's territorial lord Frederick the Wise, wars, made last meetings of Frederick the Wise, division of the Habsburgs divided into the Austrian, Spanish, and lineages, Charles V's children, Philip II's king, and Charles V then abdicated. Charles V's brother, Ferdinand of Austria, Holy Roman Emperor after him, Spanish lineage, Philip II, Austrian Ferdinand of Austria, brother Charles V, Ferdinand I, reigned 50-56-50-64, his brother Charles V, King Holy Roman Emperor, son, Maximilian II, reigned 50-64-50-75. Influenced by humanist ideas, there was another civil war between the Habsburgs, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire, I think. Different approaches between Catholics and Protestants. Catholic arts abilities, Rubens art massive. Miracle of St. Ignatius, to become a saint you got for miracles. Especially exorcism, which is what it's doing in this painting. Propaganda offensive. You don't just want to keep people Catholic by sword alone, but also by being able to convince them to do it with the heart, which is why the art makes Catholics look good. Especially by portraying them as exorcists. Monasteries, obviously medieval fortifications, but then comes the Reformation, people are like, we're not into that. So then there's lots of Protestants who live in the monasteries, so nothing really mattered, I guess. But then the Habsburgs get together and they launch a monastery as part of the Catholic Reformation in order to repopulate with Catholics. Also stop the set up schools, which is where the Jesuits come. Jesuits back in the day, they were hardcore conservatives. I told you, shut the fuck up, stop doing that. But now, of course, they're extremely liberal. Pope Francis today wants to decriminalize homosexuality. It's not the church that disagree with it, push our education.
Do you understand?
Try some vending machine coffee. Let's see what we got here. Mocha, cappuccino. Coffee to go. What the hell does this stuff mean? I'll try this one. Alrighty. 30 euros. Did it work? Okay, here we go. What? Yo! You see this? These middle schoolers are so lucky. We never had anything like this in any school.
This is crazy. This is exactly what we need. Because we wake up early in the morning at school. Well, I used to. But this would have made things a hell of a lot easier.
Is it done? It's done, right? Do I just take it out? No. There we go. Gonna try some vending machine coffee now. This is actually good. Middle schoolers are so lucky here. Alrighty, back in my apartment, just wanted to drop some stuff off and all that. So back at lecture, we got this cool little postcard so I can like send to my parents or whatever. So as you can see, it has basically most of the Habsburg lineage, but not all of it, because obviously a single postcard cannot do the Habsburg family tree justice. For example, the Spanish line doesn't even exist here, just the Austrian ones. And Habsburgs got so large that they ended up marrying each other and all that so many times. This tree is whack. Absolutely whack. If you look at it, it's just a backside. Nothing too impressive. But let's actually compare this postcard to the old one that I got at the Military History Museum. Remember this one? Yeah. So yeah, I think this is not a copy. This is an original old postcard. See how yellow it is in comparison to This type of postcard, the new one, see how much it has aged? Crazy. Anywho, I'm gonna head to the Art History Museum and hopefully I'll have enough time to go to the Café Central.
Yeah, it's there. The Art History Museum.
Yeah, you kind of have to, you have to walk a little bit. I'll show you. Just remind, don't be running. Still in your kind of peripheral vision until forward.
Food is a close second. Give us a little review.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's all of that.
Benefits of a purpose-built museum, rather than like a repurposed palace. Okay, so they can build in like security, not like. Yeah, one of the Florentine fathers of kind of the Italian school. Italian architect, artist. There are lots of references on the exterior of the building as well to different allegorical figures, like people standing and waiting. If you're interested in kind of problematic representations, the Natural History Museum is an interesting piece.
Sorry. Yeah. When I was at the Rosicrucian Museum at San Jose, the sarcophagi were closed. I think I saw like mummies in them at some points. I think I even saw like a mummified, like, was it a monkey or animal or something like that? But other than that, not really often. I normally see a body in there, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, depending on the provenance of the object. Sometimes the object has gone through multiple hands before it arrives in the collection of the museum. And sometimes during that process, contents, if they're not considered worth keeping, they'll go missing. Fortunately, as far as I know, like the copy, and that's a kind of a slight copy, but as far as I know,
I would go in there.
contested currently. That's a major claim of, it's a major topic in many museum collections around the world at the moment, largely because of the ways in which art and artifacts from colonial is often exported without the obvious consent of the local people. This is the case, for instance, in much of the British network of museums, probably most famously with the Elgin marbles, which Greece has been in the process of demanding back for decades now. A number of Egyptian antiquities in the British Museum as well. Fortunately, a lot of the, as far as I know, all of the collection here was either obtained through purchasing or gifted to the Habsburg family. That, for instance, is the case with these columns. These three rose granite columns, there's another one in the next gallery. They were gifted to Franz Joseph I in the 1860s by Egypt, by the Caliphate of Cairo. They initially were displayed in the Upper Belvedere, where we saw the Upper Belvedere from the outside on our bus tour. We'll be going there together for a tour of the inside later on the 15th, I think. But in the process of buying, of reserving this land and then planning to build this museum complex, they decided to actually structurally integrate them into the museum. So these are load-bearing columns. Yeah, remarkably. What I find even more remarkable, here we come look back to what we talked about the curation. What I find really remarkable is that there's no information on display about these rose granite columns, even though they date back to between 15 and 26,000 BCE. Yeah, they were found in Alexandria, but Alexandria's founding actually post-dates the creation of these columns. So they were probably taken to Alexandria during the 3rd century BCE. They're really fascinating artifacts. They probably came from a temple complex, but they were gifted to Franz Joseph I. He installed them initially at the Upper Belvedere, and then when this was going to become a showpiece or a showplace for the Habsburg collection, he decided to install them functionally into the Egyptian collection, and getting them from the Belvedere. I mentioned that name before. What is Vindobona? Do you remember that term?
Roman Vienna.
Yeah, exactly. The Roman fortified legionary fortress. This object, even though it's the Middle Kingdom, 19th dynasty, Middle Kingdom, so like 1300 BCE, it was found in Roman Vindobona. So it was a collector's item by probably an officer in the Roman army who had collected this antiquity. It was already a piece of antiquity, more than 1,000 years old at the time of his collection, and had it in his home in what is now the center of the First District. So we've got like obvious evidence of the Romans having an interest in Egyptian antiquities, just even here in Vienna. So this touches on kind of an interesting issue of provenance. So we know this was found here in the First District, and that simplifies things in terms of like the right to display it here and nobody claiming that they want it back. Another interesting issue, if you guys have heard this term provenance before, right? What does provenance mean? Yeah.
The history of the object.
Yeah. So like in art historical terms, at least, the provenance of an object, that term refers to the history of its ownership. Yeah. So you want to ideally be able to establish provenance as far back as possible, ideally to the object's creation, right? That's not always possible, but in this case, there's provenance data that this was an object that belonged to someone in the Roman encampment in like probably the first 200 centuries AD. This object over here, as you can see, is another exemplar of a different kind of provenance problem. This is also a sculpture from, I believe, the Middle Kingdom, but you can see from the way that it's displayed that at some point it suffered some damage, right? So damage is another dimension of an object's provenance that has to be kind of taken into account when assessing an artwork, right? So we've got this replica of the feet, and fortunately the object was reunited with its feet in the later 20th century, but for a long time these feet were in a museum in Dublin, and then finally someone in Vienna was able to convince a Dublin curator, okay, can we send the feet like this? Let's reunite these things. We'll talk a little bit about reuniting parts of an object when we go upstairs to the Northern Renaissance as well. There's still an ongoing tussle surrounding the altar, your altar piece up there. you'll notice that it's the shape of an eye if you were to look at it head on, right? This is called aspective view. Same thing is true of the shoulders. The shoulders are always front facing because this is really representative of the human torso. Is considered the most characteristic of that body part, the most recognizable, and it's the aspect from which is an attempt to mimic nature, right? Mimic how this individual actually physically appeared rather than kind of an abstract ideal of a person, right? This is the influence, this is a product of the influence of the Greeks. The Egyptian kingdom dates back to like 3200 BCE, about the same time as the earliest beginnings of the Greeks, but in the 330s BCE, the Greeks conquered Egypt and they started to influence them in many ways, including in their art and architecture. This is what's called the Ptolemaic period. It starts with a P, like Ptolemy, Ptolemy. And it's called that because the rulers are a series of Ptolemies. And the last of them is Cleopatra. Yeah. So this is the influence of the Greek aesthetic, which we'll talk about in a second.
Maybe a seer? Oh, it looks like green.
Very ancient.
So we had a comment, which was that you'll notice that indications of date tend to still use the older system of BC versus, before Christ versus AD Anno Domini. The scientific community is a little bit not so much fans of that designation. Most art historians and historians in general try and prefer the CE Roman era and Common era CE designation as it attempts at least to move away from religious So I mentioned that Greek culture can be traced back to about the same origin period as ancient Egyptians, about 3200 BCE. But the kind of pinnacle of Greek artistic creation, Greek philosophy, Greek literature, Greek drama, writing, humanism, politics, etc., you see coalesce right about in the period between like 500 BCE and about 300 BCE. Then after, so this is the classical and Hellenistic periods, they start to experience a decline and starting at about 146 BCE, and that's because they're weakened military, then it means that they get conquered by the Romans, and then we enter this period of the Greco-Roman Empire, which we'll talk about in just a second. But let's take a look at this object for the moment. This is actually not original to the Greek and the Hellenistic and classical periods because it's a Roman marble copy. There's this saying in classical study that and I think it's attributable to Mary Beard. By the way, if you're interested in the classics, in the Roman Empire in particular, I can. What does that mean? Yeah, great. The Romans, some of their success can probably be attributed to the fact that they were copying the objects, the art objects, architecture, and culture, and visual practices of a lot of the people they conquered. And this is also the case with Greece. Fortunately, when the Romans decided to kind of embrace Greek aesthetic and copy all of their sculpture and art, they did it in marble, which when you're about to fight a battle and need ammunition, you can't melt down marble and make it into bullets, which is why Greek bronzes, because of these you can see that one line goes one direction, the other line goes the opposite direction. And this is meant to mimic real life, the way that people actually put their weight in their hips and their standing, right? You're right, that is probably visualized its head and the lower parts of its legs, as well as like usually there's like a wooden stump or something that is marble. But any marble sculpture from the Greek classical period, also the Greco-Roman period, would have been really recognizable.
I'll always be a villain.
This metaphysics class.
From the 2nd century here, you guys can get closer and I'll just talk from over your shoulder. 2nd century CE, from a site just outside of Salzburg that had apparently a Roman complex. Probably a very specific,
Like contemporary? Yeah, contemporary. Point finger.
god of partying and pleasure and wine, and they have a fantastic term for this in German. Rausch. Rausch is like ecstasy, like it's the process of losing yourself so completely in something that you are overtaken, overwhelmed by the collective, and you lose yourself in the whole. This is typically experienced, kind of a state of ecstasy that's experienced by his followers, who are often termed bacchantes. Yeah, and you can see two medallions that, oh wait, that's not one of them, this is one of them. There's usually a medallion over there. This one definitely is a bacchante. She is a follower of Dionysus, who is a member of his cult. You can tell that she's a bacchante because she's holding a thyrsus, which is a giant leek. I don't know, does anybody play Pokemon Go? Forbids, or a proclamation that forbids bacchanalia, yeah, the worship of Bacchus by especially female practicants. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna continue. I think you guys, yeah, just a very brief stop.
I definitely should have eaten something else because I'm already crashed. Get that content.
Yes.
Are you doing a vlog?
Oh, I can't. Not gonna work. Never mind.
Any names that first struck you? Yeah, exactly. So this is him. Yeah, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor. He died in 180 CE. Yeah, died in Vindobona. In fact, this has current relevance actually because I don't know if you guys has anybody seen the movie Gladiator? My students this like a couple years ago, and they were like, and I looked it up and it's related. So if your birth year is like post 2001, yeah.
Visitor. Or think maybe you're the frescoes. What are these?
So Commodus is really kind of a problem for many reasons. The reality, again, in this case, is kind of stranger than fiction. In the film, they show some of his abuses and the fact that he had a little bit of an incestuous kind of interest in his sister, and he was super unstable and stuff. But actually, Commodus, he's a really corrupt figure, and he's the first of the emperors to be so-called born in the purple, because he was born and assumed to be the next emperor during the course of his father's life while his father was emperor. Usually the emperor of Rome would adopt a promising, young, smart, male, progeny protege, and then train them up, not necessarily their own kin. But Commodus is earmarked for the early age of lot of kind of mystery surrounding these objects and a lot of lore that is incorrect. For a long time, these objects were believed to be the hoard of Attila the Hun. It's now pretty much decisively different from that stuff. But it's now called the hoard of which is a location in modern day Romania. They were found in the 1790s when that part of the world still belonged to the Holy Roman Empire. So that's why they're here. But this is one of kind of a small handful of objects. During the Renaissance period. It was long believed that this object was an original Greek bronze. It is bronze, but it is not original Greek. And then for a while it was believed that this was a Roman bronze copy of a Greek bronze. The Roman bronze copy dating to like the 1st or 2nd century CE, the Greek original dating to like the 4th, maybe 3rd century BCE. But that was also disproven in the 1980s. So it was believed for a long time to be a Roman bronze from probably the 2nd century CE, and that was later disproven. It actually is a copy of a copy. It is a 16th century Renaissance era copy of a Roman bronze, which was a copy of a Greek original. In the 1550s, there is now evidence that they've discovered in the late 20th century. They discovered evidence that 2 of these objects existed at the same time. The bronze.
I'll always be a villain.
An object to copy by the Romans. Well, the Romans associated Hermes, or do you know what's the Roman equivalent of Hermes? Mercury. When this was probably originally in Greek context, either a rendering of the
I'll always be a villain.
Copy when they were making art.
Inside of the top.
There are loads of fascinating objects in this collection. It's called Kunst und Wunderkammer, which means art and wonders chamber, because it became quite common for the regent of the House of Magazines. What's happening in the mid-16th century in the North? We've talked about this a little bit already.
The Protestant Reformation.
Protestant Reformation and the fallout of the Protestant Reformation, especially for the really kind of conservative Calvinistic sects, is that they want to strip churches of all of their icons so that it just becomes bare on the inside, because they're really worried about people venerating the object rather than the thing it's meant to represent, right? So that's idolatry, according to the Protestant faith. And so they start to destroy all of these objects that represent Mary and Christ and all kinds of other stuff. And so Catholics in the South start collecting who she was particularly revered by? Servants, yeah, exactly, the servant's Madonna. Yeah, the so-called servant's Madonna because of that anecdote with the servant and how the jewels were miraculously found. Yeah, but the servant's Madonna is a Madonna executed around the same time, so early to mid 14th century. This one's late 14th century, in a style that's usually called the weicher or schöner Stil, the beautiful or soft style. Not only does it have the characteristic kind of tenderness and motherliness, etc., between the mother and child, but the other thing it has is this really dramatic Gothic-esque curve, this really forced, kind of exaggerated contrapposto that becomes really characteristic of sculpture in the Gothic period. Now, this gets revised when the practitioners in the Renaissance kind of started taking their hands to sculpture, but this is very characteristic of what's the things in here. I'm not going to go down to the That's the berries of a bush or a tree. There are lots of different kinds of pepper. Traditionally, there's a tree. You harvest these berries and you dry them, and then you grind them, and that creates pepper. Yeah. And of course, pepper for a long time, especially in this period when this was created in the 14th, has kind of lost sensitivity to it. It was like, oh, okay, thank you for your interest, but you got it under control. So nothing really was done, and Robert Lang, apparently a couple weeks later, he had been out with his friends on a bender, and he was a little bit and on the way through this square in the middle of the night, he was like, you know what? I should prove it. I should prove this is a point. Why not? So he climbs up the exterior scaffolding, lets himself in through a window. Sure, the alarm went off, but it was not really noticed. And within the course of less than 47 seconds, he was able to smash the glass in which this was held, take the salvia out, and disappear. And it was gone. Nobody knew where it disappeared to. He eventually, apparently, and his sister Margaret of Austria were the ones who kind of principally started collecting objects that became this amazing collection. He had a particular passion for Augsburg clockwork stuff, which you can see in some of these vitrines. This boat over here, this is something that would have been placed on the dining room table and wound up and then allowed to kind of motor down. It moves. There's actually video online, and there's a couple of iPads over there that you can watch the replay of this thing. Actually, it still works. They wind it up, and it plays a little music, and the musicians, they kind of move, and one of, the drummer like hits his little drums. This boat over here. And then at the end, as it moves across the table, it fires kind of smoke pellets from those cannons at the people who are sitting at the dining room table. So all of this we take off. So when you go back, I encourage you to check out the video of this thing. As I mentioned, check out a lot of the automata in this room. There's
Whoa! There's a painting on the ceiling. Wow.
Is the famous Quint, is it still at the New Gallery in New York? Or is it
you mean there are lots of famous ones?
the
Do you mean the
Lady
Lady
in
in Gold?
Yeah.
That's at the Neue Gallery in New York. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been there. I didn't know if they moved it back here.
There was a whole Geschichte having to do with the
History.
with the Austrian government suggesting that it belonged here and it was
But they
rightfully
didn't.
and legally purchased, and that went to the European court. I was here for all of that, and it was very kind of bitter and egregious.
Was the court here?
No, they.
Okay.
Early 15th century, you ask someone which art form would, in the next several hundred years, come to represent kind of the pinnacle of all art forms, it would not. None of the first people you asked at that point would have possibly ultimately become kind of the king of the fine arts, right? It now is kind of considered the pinnacle of the arts. But painting, two-dimensional representation, was always kind of something.
Oh, oh, oh.
The viewer is meant to get here. But the important bit of some of these innovations from Jan van Eyck are centered around this illusionism, this principle of trying to capture the illusion of reality in two dimensions, that being the objective, the illusion of a different reality possibly. And I think that maybe that argument can be probably better made by some of his scenes, like the Arnolfini portrait. Okay. surrounding what will become the Protestant Reformation. 1517 is the year in which Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses and starts the protest. So this is a time period that becomes very quickly quite kind of chaotic. On top of which we've got 1525, Rome gets sacked by Karl V's mutinous soldiers. We've got 1529, the siege of Vienna, the first Turkish siege. Lots of kind of chaos happening. 1525 also the Civil War of the First Bürgerkrieg and the Peasants' War in the German states. And in all of this, the Protestant Reformation is and its ideals are kind of gaining steam across a number of different realms, right? Political realm, religious, etc. And something that we've already touched on is that the more kind of radical factions of the Protestant movement start to identify idolatry as a real danger. And they want to strip all their churches of references to, pictorial references to like saints, Mary, under the auspices of wanting to avoid the faithful possibly worshiping a really beautiful rendition of Mary rather than the figure that So the first wave of iconoclasm comes out of this. And not too long after that, we've got northern painters like Royal trying to grapple with what kind of subject matter is safe turf now. If I'm not allowed to take that.
But again, what you see is all over this.
Okay, I'm told that you are already familiar with this work. virtue of the fact that Vermeer, Johannes von Vermeer is, his catalog raisonné is very limited. We only know of maybe a dozen or so works that are firmly ascribed to him. Most of them are in historic collections and aren't budging. Like there's one in the royal collection at Buckingham Palace. It belongs to the royal family. There's this one. Usually they're in, very well-established, formerly royal collections that are now on display. This is also the pearl earring, the girl with the pearl earring. He worked in a way that was really revolutionary, and it's still a little bit of a mystery exactly how it was.
No. Mi się podoba szkoła, bo jest... No bo to jest oglądałem akurat. I szedłem, to jeszcze rozwiązałem. Mówię, który mi się podoba.
Titian kind of anti this. Lots of portraits, lots of paintings of women. So Titian is one of the quintessential Venetian Renaissance.
All good. Thank you.
This is court portraiture by who was the court painter in Madrid. First for Philip IV. Philip IV ended up his second wife was Mariana of Austria. This is the sister of Leopold I, Austrian wife.
All good, all good.
Same little princess depicted in Las Vegas. And then her brother, he died. And then the youngest brother was Carlos II, the bewitched one, the one who had the beliefs and John kind of met the
Vielen Dank für den Besuch und dürfen Sie darauf hinweisen, dass das Museum nur noch 30 Minuten geöffnet ist. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your visit and wish to remind you that the museum is open for another 30 minutes.
She's laid out on a slab like floors, and she delivers this painting of the dense unfortunately, okay. Let's see the next room.
Here you see Mary Shaw.
But don't give them directly. They give through the priest, because that was the commission of the Catholic Church, and the structural can also through
So I'm at the Café Central, and I got some epic iced coffee here, and it's really good. And yeah.
Maybe another glass of water or something?
Alrighty, y'all. So the coffee house that I was just at is the Café Central of Vienna. I gotta be careful that I don't get hit. Okay, we're good. So, yeah, that place back there has really good stuff, and it's actually affordable. 20 euros, which is crazy. I thought it was gonna be more expensive. It looks hella expensive, but it's not. I mean, it is expensive for coffee, but still, it's worth it. Worth it. And so, yeah, and this place was established in like 1874. 1874. That's a long time ago. And it has had many, many famous guests, including Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Joseph Broz Tito, and Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and I think Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and I think Archduke Franz Joseph also went there, and Sigmund Freud also went there. And I think they went there at the exact same time. They all lived in this area, the same area, in like 1913. All of these figures lived in this area at the same time and went to the same coffee house. But here's the funny thing. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a funny little drama comedy right there. And yeah, that you'd be right, because after all, let's see what happens with these historical figures later. Lenin overthrows the Russian aristocracy. Franz Ferdinand gets his ass shot. Well, actually, no, that reverse order of events. Franz Ferdinand gets his ass shot. Franz Joseph loses the title of Emperor of Austria. Vladimir Lenin overthrew the Romanovs, and then was succeeded by Stalin, who executed Trotsky and ended up having a lot of beef with Hitler, and Sigmund Freud had to leave Austria because he was Jewish, and Hitler was after all the Jews at the time, thus he couldn't be safe, thus he was a threat to Freud, so Freud had to flee for his life because of Hitler. Hitler and Stalin had their beefing. Oh yeah, and Stalin killed Trotsky because he was a political dissident when Stalin became dictator. So, the fact that all these people went to the same coffee house... Oh, sorry, I just saw this. This looks like it's another Stolperstein. I've already found 3 of these.
this really puts into perspective how large and how widespread the Holocaust was. It's one thing to like go to a museum and see all this, but to see it in your neighborhood, by your house or your office or your favorite restaurant, that could have been you or your neighbors or your family or your friends. That's crazy.